Yes, hello tradies. Welcome to the final season preview for the top 6 sides from last year. We are not far away from games officially starting in 2025. My co-host is here. We are fresh off Captain's Day at Marvel Stadium. Welcome to you, Mitchell.
I'm still stunned sitting here this morning recording tradies that your head fit through that door with what I come across last night. The new footy classified promo.
How many times are you going to make that joke?
Mate,
I just got mated.
there's 7 people in that promo. You get 7 lines. No one else hardly speaks. It feels like
This is a beat up.
It feels like you've planted a promo person in there and you said, just give me a bit of me time. I need a bit of sprucing up before the start of the season.
I was with my niece on the couch watching God knows what. I think it was one of the dog cartoons that she's obsessed with. And my phone started...
Bluey?
No, it wasn't Bluey. My phone started lighting up, and obviously the promo had gone to air. It must have been like 6:45 on Monday, so it was like during news or something.
Yeah, okay.
And my phone just started lighting up, and of course I immediately get anxiety, being like, "Shit, what have I done? What have I written?" And it was the promo had gone to air, so yeah, it was a lot.
Were you surprised with how much it was about you?
I was, yeah, I was. I was uncomfortable. How'd you find Captain's Day?
Yeah, same old. Just it's sort of saturated with media, and you got to try and work your way through trying to find something that'll hold. I guess in my shoes, that'll hold for the news later that night. So it's a bit of a juggle every year. For those that haven't seen it before, they usually put up 3 or 4 captains for an all-in press conference. Then it's open slather for the rest. So you're just trying to think about where the news cycle can move to and where you can find yourself a hook for later that night. But all in all, decent day. You?
It's not often that you see you and Tom Morris in the same location. I enjoyed watching.
Oh, you were watching, were you?
Yeah, I was. I stood back and watched.
What did you take in from that?
You two didn't cross over much.
We get on.
I didn't say that you didn't.
Well,
So,
you make the
very
setup,
defensive.
The setup here was that we like 2 dogs in a park. We don't see eye to eye.
I didn't say that.
Oh, that was the assertion I got from the tone that you were rolling with all the time.
Okay, well, there seems to be maybe some defence mechanisms that have gone up early. Did you get any tradies content?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
I was there with my 7 News cap on.
I was there with my tradies hat on. No, I was there for the age. I was there for the age. I wasn't wearing a hat yesterday.
We actually, by the way, we've got hats.
We have got hats.
I've never had more response to an Instagram last week.
Are we selling them, Scotty? Are they going like hotcakes?
Yeah, they've been put in. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. Great.
So
Links in the bio. Is that what you say?
yeah,
On
links
social
in the
media?
bio.
Okay, cool.
Instagram at Tradies Podcast.
Yep.
Get involved. Clubby Sports website.
So I spoke to a few captains for the age yesterday. Held off some stuff for later in the week.
Oh.
But I did get to speak to one captain about the A-graders list. Take a list.
Hey sis, how you going, man? How are you? Good, how are you? I literally just wanted 30 seconds on your thoughts on the Tradies podcast about being named in the A-graders list.
Oh, I saw that, and then I also saw that Kane rubbed me out.
Yeah, that was going to be my second question.
Yeah, so you, Kane.
Okay. Well, we love James Sicily because he's honest.
He looks a bit like you.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You've had that before. We've discussed this, haven't we?
No, I often got Nick Floston.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I've got James Sicily.
Maybe I'm getting mixed up with Boston.
But it is a very sort of cheap argument that anyone with vaguely red or ginger hair and pasty skin, apparently I immediately look like. Which is unfair. But we do play football in very similar veins.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Courageous.
Go forward, hit the scoreboard.
That's right. Multiple positions. The A grade has got a bit of a nudge.
I like that from James.
At Captain's Day.
He was the glaring omission from Kane's list, wasn't he?
I didn't read Kane's list very deeply.
Insane. Actually, this came across my desk during the week.
Oh, I like things that come across desks.
Kane's had his crack at the A grade list.
Yes.
Now he's sort of eyeing off Mitch's men, if this is anything to go by.
Hey boys, love the show. I was listening to a little clip of Kane Corns talking about his 10 most underrated players in the AFL on SEN. And he spoke about Will and Drew and how he didn't think he would be recognised if he was walking down Chapel Street. this made me think about the Swan Street test that you boys talk about. What are your thoughts on Kane's Timu Swan Street test? And do you think Kane's starting to steal some of your ideas?
Thanks for that, Angelo. First I've heard of that.
Yeah, I actually had no idea. Did he actually go with that? I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and accuse someone of theft because I don't have all the evidence. That's the first time I'm hearing that. I've been sued for defamation enough times to know that is just one person's opinion. What I would say, if you're asking me about it, is that if Kane's going with the Chapel Street test, that is an indication that Kane is still stuck in South Australia, needs to spend a little bit more time in Melbourne because Chapel Street's nowhere near a football ground. The Swan Street test is the Swan Street test because it is down the road from the Coliseum that is the MCG. A lot of football fans walk down Chapel Street. Now, if you wanted to do the DJ test, our man Tyson O'Brien, if he was to walk down Chapel Street, given that there's Revolver and there's other nightclubs and Porn and Co.
Lucky Cock still go off?
It's not really a nightclub, more of a pub, but sure. Then that would make more sense. So I would, if Kane was asking for my advice, which I'm sure he's not, I would just change the street to something closer. You could do the Royal Parade test.
Okay.
You could do the Arden Street test. You could do the Melrose Drive test for those in Essendon, even though no one walks down past the airport.
King William in Adelaide test.
No, but we're here in Melbourne.
Yeah,
don't worry about.
He's an Adelaide guy.
Don't worry about.
We go beyond
outside. No, we don't.
What's the Sydney? You're a Sydney guy.
Love Sydney. I wish I could move back to Sydney. And by back, I mean I've never actually lived there. All right, enough talking crap from us. Let's get into the final 6 teams, and we start. By the way, I got a lot of strong feedback from research assistant Dan, who's made his way back to life after having his first child. Seb,
congratulations.
Not happy with the order. Thinks that it should be post finals.
I did put that up in the group chat, as you saw.
Don't
do
that.
I can see where Dan's coming from.
I'm happy with what we've done.
Yep.
Yeah, it's where you finished after the season proper.
It's not the EPL, but yeah.
Well, the EPL don't have finals, so it's a poor.
Yeah, but we're going to do Brisbane in the middle here, and they won it, so they almost should be last. Yeah.
Anyway, we start with the Dogs. The Dogs who lose Caleb Daniel, Alex Keith retired. I just mentioned him because they're struggling for key backs on occasion. Jack McRae, of course, has gone to the Saints, and Bailey Smith, the Cats. The only notable in is they bring in Matt Kennedy. You want to start here, Mitchell?
Well, the third oldest list in the competition. So this is a side that really should be contending and pushing for the flag. But some of their best players are ageing players. So Bont turns 30 this year, Treloar 32 in a week, and Libba is 33 in May. So some question marks on the next wave in that midfield. Ed Richards is that guy, but he's picked up a bit of a calf injury, so that'll be a watch heading into the start of the season. Riley Sanders, we still want to see it. Again, year 2, they go to the draft and get Cooper Hines with the first rounder. So what's this next wave in the midfield after these senior guys? That's the question for me. Matt Kennedy is good depth, but with Treloar to miss the start of the season, he's probably going to have to roll up his sleeves and be a big part of it. But yeah, this side, with the age demographic, they lose those guys. McRae, multiple All-Australian, Bailey Smith, whose ceiling could be anything, and Caleb Daniel, who's an All-Australian. They lose those 3 senior players, and they're still the third oldest list. This list is in an interesting spot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess their argument would be with Daniel didn't have a guaranteed spot. McRae was playing 2s, and Smith didn't play all of last year. But I take your point, and I had written down the same thing. Injuries early in the season could cost them wins. Like when you think about Jamara, Treloar, Richards. You added Johannesson in there, which I know.
Liam Jones is the big one.
And then Liam Jones, of course. They're 5 of your best 22. I mean, that's a significant portion all of a sudden. So they've got to bank wins early and hope that, they get these guys back and they can take a bit of momentum, because suddenly if they start 1 and 4, problems for the Dogs. In gaps, do they lack a little bit of speed on the outside, potentially? And it's one of the reasons that Bailey Smith, I think, was such a good in for them. Bailey Williams has obviously been a good player for a while now. But who's their other wingman? Is it a Harvey Gallagher?
Yeah, Harvey Gallagher. Latham Vandermeer plays a bit through there.
Yeah, but
they've gone to the draft.
Vanders is not. He's not really a
Vanders.
Sorry.
Oh, no, gee, Vanders.
Sorry, that's bad. Latham.
That's you coached him at.
Yes, but I should have called him Latham. You're right. He's not. What did you say, Scotty?
It's a bit of T-Pap territory.
T-Pap.
What do you call Brewsty when you play golf with him?
No.
LB.
Latham is not really that pacey winger type. He's a hit up half forward.
Yeah. The wing's been a concern for them for a while. They actually go to the draft and pick up Sam Davidson, who I see as a bit of an Ollie Dempsey type. He's a mature age, played VFL last year. And
he's more of a key forward.
No, he's more of a hybrid half forward wing type.
Yeah, he's over. Oh no, the tradies height test.
Yeah,
he must be 193, 194.
Oh, here we go. My Wi-Fi is just sort of kicking into gear. This is why I need the season guide in front of me, because the Wi-Fi is just not sort of working at this point.
Cut this out, Scotty. Hang on.
This is great podcasting.
Hang on.
Sam Davidson, who not many of our listeners will just know yet.
191. Pretty close from me. Not really key forward height, though. Yeah, okay. So you think that he could play a little bit of that role?
Yeah.
Despite the injuries and despite, like I was obviously really strong on them being a great list last year, and I still think they are. And here's one of my reasons. You look at the names like Bramble, Caulfield, Harms, all pretty good footballers in their own right. Like, these are guys that when they're up and running, the Dogs will be fighting on the fringes for spots.
Well, Bramble was top 10 in the BNF last year.
Yeah, but I think best 22.
Yeah.
Those guys are going to be, in the last few selected. So we had the Bulldogs media briefing day.
Funny you mentioned that. I was going to bring that up to see. Had my radar up to see what you went with here, and if there was anything from inside the tent that you were going to drop.
Well, I was just firstly curious why you didn't come. I didn't realise that you had suddenly become too good for the media briefings.
I had the 7 promo day that day.
You couldn't just sneak over west for an hour?
No.
Oh, boy. I haven't seen any of the 7 promos, by the way. Are you sort of front and centre? Or?
No, I'm more of a backroom operator.
You're more of a backroom. Okay.
Yeah.
And I sort of had the argument with Sam Power and Matthew Egan at the because I don't think I'm breaking privilege here, but the thinking internally was that the media are unfair in just painting the Dogs as a top 4 list. Because the argument internally was, if you're a top 4 list, you finish top 4. Mm-hmm. I just think that that's a short-sighted argument. Like, I think that that's a bailout argument when you don't live up to your potential. Because they've had access to so much talent that other clubs who have been successful, like the Dogs, haven't been able to get. You think about, Jamara through the NGA and then Darcy through father-son. There'd be clubs like North Melbourne, for instance, that would just bend over backwards. It would give their left arm.
Well, the AFL helped them out.
North or?
North.
How?
Priority picks.
Yeah, but it hasn't helped them, has it? Because they're still awful.
But I'm saying it helps them.
Yeah.
The Ben Mackay, not saying this was the AFL, that was the system that was set up, but the Ben Mackay one.
No, that was the AFL. They manipulate the system.
Well, North manipulated a system that was already in place.
Yeah, but the AFL allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went down a rabbit hole. I don't need any more of the AFL coming back at me.
What?
I was leaving that one through to the keeper. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I think that the Dogs, on paper, with the talent that they have and the quality that they have, you throw in the fact that they've probably got the best player in the competition. They just simply have to be thinking about top 4 this year.
Yeah. And you throw in Jordan Croft as well, who they got as a first-round pick as a father-son, who now enters year 3. Channel 7 cameraman just calling me about today's
Do you want to answer it?
No.
Okay. Your thoughts on the Dogs before we move on?
Yeah, the key back is a huge hole, highlighted by Liam Jones-Hammy to start the year. Rory Lobb falls in their lap. Now, Bevo cops a lot for moving the magnets.
He does.
But this was a masterstroke last year. They would be cooked right now if they hadn't found Rory Lobb as a centre-half back. Who's the next guy now? So Buku Karmas, James O'Donnell, Jed Bustlinger, who's a first-rounder. They're looking for someone to take that opportunity by both hands. And don't forget, they went after Tom Barris last year and he chose Hawthorn over the Dogs. The small forward's always been a watch for me. They dropped Riley West in the final last year. Artie Jones, is he in their best team? Cody Waitman's out, but he's more of a sort of small marking forward like a Jamie Elliott comparatively. And my question is, in defence, who is their general? So we talk about it all the time. The Dane Rampy, the Tom Stewart, the Harris Andrews. Liam Jones is mid-30s now. Hasn't got a lot of footy left. So what is next for the Bulldogs in defence? And my prediction for the Dogs is Bontempelli, who's a free agent, and you spoke about it on this show last year. There's not many players who sign 4-year deals as a 26-year-old free agent. He's a rare commodity of player who will turn 30 and he's worth the same as a 30-year-old as he was when he was 26, when he was last a free agent. He's unrestricted right now. Does he wait and sit back and watch what's happening with Luke Beveridge's future?
But he'll sign though.
Will
He's
he, though?
such a loyal guy. Well, I think it'd be almost the biggest story in footy history if he left the Dogs. I think it'd be bigger than Judd leaving West Coast.
Buddy, all these sort of ones.
Yeah, I think it'd be. But he ended up being that big in the end because everyone sort of knew he was leaving. It's just the fact that he went to Sydney instead of the Giants. But I take your point.
He's got his flag, the Bont.
Yep. So my question before we get off the Dogs with this on the Bont is he's 30 this year or is he already 30?
Turns 30 this year.
Same. So he's Cripps age, isn't he? Is he Cripps merit draft?
That feels right.
Yeah. Anyway, it's by the by. The Dogs, I guess, would almost have to offer him whatever he wanted. But my question would be, if you're a club wanting to take a massive punt and you're close-ish to a flag and Bont just absolutely, puts you over the edge, is someone game enough to give him 5 or 6 years and just know that he probably only gets half that and they cop it on the way out? That's the big thing for me.
Yeah.
So if you're Carlton or you're Melbourne or, you're Essendon, probably not Essendon, but because they're not, without being a smart ass, they're not as close to a flag. But like if you're at Carlton and you sort of, like Chera's been injured and Walsh has been injured and they can't quite, they haven't thought about Oliver and Merritt a couple of years ago and couldn't quite get it. Or if you're Melbourne, you got Petrarca and Oliver, but, they're missing that final piece. If you could blow the Dogs out of the water with length of contract.
Yeah, and that's my point. He's unrestricted, so the Dogs don't have any rights in matching. This is not Jeremy Cameron. This is not Ben Mackay, where you get the choice as the home club or the existing club to match a deal. He can walk any club he wants.
Yep.
So a club will out there might go over the odds for him because they're not giving up a draft. And I know we joke about this, but if you're Carlton and you're in the top 4 this year and you just miss out, if you can somehow find 1.2 to 1.5 in the cap, which is going to be difficult.
But you find it, though, for him. Like, you let DeConing go and you move a few people around and you find the cash. Yep. And then, do the Dogs have to match that in the spot that they're at? They probably couldn't. This is the thing.
Yeah.
If they end up missing the 8 or they get blown away in a first final and Beveridge doesn't get recontracted and Bont's sitting there thinking, okay, well, what do I do here? And he's got a 3-year offer on the table at 1.5, which is obviously great going for someone of his age. If Carlton or Melbourne came along and just doubled it, it'd be interesting space.
Double it in terms of tenure?
Yeah.
Yep.
Same cash. We'll
Yep.
just double it. We'll guarantee you the cash.
Yep. The other one we haven't mentioned as well is Jamara. So I watched there, but they're pretty well stocked. So anyone else who loses their leading goal kicker like Jamara was last year at the Dogs would be on the eve of the season a little bit up in the air, but they've still got Norton, they've still got Darcy. They're pretty well stocked without Jamara. So we wait and see here. He does have a contract for 2026. But his future will obviously be a talking point.
All right, let's move on to the Lions. Premiers from last year. They obviously won it from outside the 4. They belted Carlton in that first elimination final. And we start with Riley, who's got a Just Quickly, brought to you by the great people at 7-Eleven and their food on the go lunchtime offers.
G'day boys, keep up the great work. Just in regards to the Brisbane Lions, do you believe they could have covered the loss of Joe Danaher with a better option than Sam Day, who is in the twilight of his career? For example, someone with a bit more upside such as Nathan Kruger, I believe would have been a more viable option. Yet now a large reliance is placed on Hipwood. Last year Logan Morris thrived as the third key, drawing a lesser defender. He won't get that luxury this year. And when you look at the key forward stocks beyond that, Sticks Ryan is a fringe player at best. Now is the time Hipwood must stand up. Many have expected him to take the next step in the past, but now entering the 10th year of his career, he must repay the Lions for the faith they put in him when signing him to the end of 2029.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that passionate plea and question, Riley. So out goes Jared Lyons, who retired. Harry Sharp got traded to the D's, and of course Joe Danaher, who left with a year on his deal. They bring in Levi Ashcroft. I'm not a guy that mentions draftees, but from all the raps on this young man, it sounds like he's going to walk into a side that already has just won the grand final, which is incredible. The Danaher question's a fascinating one. Like, I think we could be critical on them like Riley has been, but, it was a bit of a surprise. They didn't exactly get a lot of time to work out a replacement. And their forward six...
Hang on. Joe said 12 months ago, if we win the flag, I'm out. And they denied it all year.
Yeah, well, who do you believe?
Joe?
Yeah, I probably do as well. Anyway, their forward six without Danaher is still pretty amazing. Like Rayner, Hipwood, Lohman, Morris, Cameron.
Lincoln McCarthy comes back
And
from
Lincoln
ACL.
McCarthy comes back from the knee. But yes, they are missing that powerhouse forward that can kick 50 to 60 goals. They're difficult people to replace. But they still have so much talent on that list, they might just have to work out a different avenue to goal. And then the whole Oscar Allen question will be asked all year, I guess.
Yeah. They didn't have a lot of time, as you said, because they were maybe hoping that Joe might change his mind. Plus the salary cap limitations. You can't go after a big fish at the end of last year and lure a big name out of another club. So I can understand where they've landed on Sam Day. He's going to be serviceable. He can go into the ruck if they need. He's that key pillar that you can rely on. His body's let him down over his career, but he seems to have had a bit of continuity recently. Not to mention they didn't have the draft picks because they needed to go to the draft and use those picks for Levi Ashcroft, another kid they took early in Sam Marshall. So they needed the points to match those selections. It was more about stocking up, hoping to see what they could find this year with a key forward going into the end of 2025. But yeah, on your question, Riley, I can understand how they've ended up on Sam Day. So the Lions are the second oldest list in the league, but they're still getting high-end output from guys like Dane Zorko, Ryan Lester, Lockie Neal. Day and Darcy Fort are both 30 plus, and they're bit part players. Fort's a premiership ruckman, but McInerney is the preferred guy. So it does skew a little bit when you've got role players 30 plus as opposed to other clubs who rely on every single 30 pluser on their list. The key forward is the one, Sticks Ryan, Riley mentioned, is our man, Brandon Ryan, from the end of the 2023 Tradies Awards.
Wow, of course.
We had high hopes for. And
you had high hopes for.
Well, we sort of shared that.
I'm not sure I sort of did.
They get Ty Gallop, a kid out of the draft, who showed a bit last week, but it's going to take time. And the underrated part of Joe going out, I think, is the second ruck. So we all adore and admire Joe, what he's done as a key forward, but he allows Oscar McInerney to have a 5 or 10 minute breather each quarter.
Great point.
And Hipwood won't be able to do that. Logan Morris won't be able to do that. So you can understand why the Day conversation exists. I just love the core of this side from 25 to 30. How about some of these names between the ages of 25 to 30 on the Lions list? Charlie Cameron, Oscar McInerney, Harris Andrews, Josh Dunkley, Tom Duday comes back from an ACL, Eric Hipwood, Kala Chi, Jared Berry, Hugh McCluggage, Brandon Starcevich, Zach Bailey, Cam Raider, Kitty Coleman, and Jack Payne, all in that perfect prime age of 25 to 30. This team is not going anywhere. If they had Danaher right now, I'd be tipping them for the flag by 6 goals plus. I reckon they would be that far ahead of anyone else. But he is the big hole.
Yeah, I think I'd be tipping them for the flag if they had Danaher, but not by 6 goals. And I don't think they'll win it without him.
Okay.
In fact, I think they'll slip out of the 4.
Wow.
But the mix that they've got is just sensational. You have a look at the depth of players across their top 10 of their best and fairest from last year. Neal, Zorko, Dunkley, McCluggage, Wilmot, Lester, some role players there, Andrews, Berry, Danaher, McInerney, Rayner. Just a quick shout out to Dane Zorko, who I just think doesn't quite get the plaudits in Victoria that he necessarily deserves. If he'd had this career for Brisbane that he had for Collingwood or Carlton, we'd be just talking about him as a modern day great. He's on 277 games, so he can actually become the third ever Brisbane Lion to be a 300 gamer. Simon Black on top with 322, Marcus Ashcroft at 318.
That's extraordinary given he was taken as a mature age out of the quaffle.
Yeah, and the 3 players that he could go past this season, touch wood, hope he stays fit and healthy, Michael Voss, Luke Power, Nigel Lappin. We're talking about all-time club great territory now. And we're talking about one of the greats of the game territory now for what he's achieved. And I've said this before when I talked about him on my A-graders list, the breadth of roles that he's been able to play. You think about it, he's played as a midfielder, he's played as a small defender, he's played as a rebounding halfback flanker. He's a leading goal kicker. I think he's a 2-time leading goal kicker at Brisbane. Like, this is a guy that has been asked to play in shit teams, every single different role, and he's now getting the rewards as a leader in a really good team. So I just thought I'd give a little shout out to Dane Zorko. I don't really know him at all. He sounds like he's a lovely bloke, but he's a bloody good player.
Yep. And just my final point on the list build for the Lions, recruiters and list managers will always tell you the best teams and the premiership winners are teams that have players playing above their contract value.
Yes.
So you go back to last year's flag, have a look at Zorko, who, would be taking less than he would have been in his prime as a late 20s, early 30s player. Ashcroft and Fletcher were both in their second year last year, so they were on the fixed AFL contract that second-year players get. Kalachi had an amazing final series. Kyle Lohman and Darcy Wilmot both year 3, and they get Logan Morris as a year 1. So to get the high-end output out of those guys and what they were able to do last year is a big reason as to why this list was able to go above its already an amazing list, but to be able to perform like they did, and it allows you to pay guys at the high end like Neil, like Charlie Cameron, like Danaher was.
Yep.
They've just re-signed Cam Rayner. McCluggage gets a 7-year deal. So to get guys who are playing above their contract value is a massive tick.
And they're obviously going to have a lot of cash to spend on a key forward. So if they miss out on Oscar Allen, I assume the Lions will get particularly creative. They might, depending on the year the Gold Coast have, might try to lure Ben King across the road. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a crack
Is
at
that off
Harry Mackay.
mail, or you just...
I'm just saying. I have to watch this space.
Okay.
I think that they've got I think they might have a list on the whiteboard for the key forwards, and I think they might have values next to their names. And
B King's up there.
I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
Okay. Another free agent who might slip under the radar a bit is Brandon Starcevich. Had a stinker of a grand final against Bobby Hill. Bobby had a large part to say in that, given his heroics in 2023. But Starcevich had an amazing grand final last year playing on Tom Papley. Kept him to 1 goal in that first quarter.
Please refer to him by his proper name.
T-Pap. So I think he's a free agent, Starcevich, who will be spoken more and more. He's got the links back to WA as well. So those clubs, I'm sure, are having a look at him.
All right, let's get on to Greater Western Sydney, who, for all intents and purposes, probably should have won the flag given the positions that they found themselves in not 1 but 2 finals. They lose some good players. They lose some players that are going to have to be replaced internally. And Cumming, Peatling, Perryman, and then Haynes was obviously ended up being a depth player with his injury profile. And they basically only bring in Jake Stringer. So you would think that the likes of Connor Stone and Xavier O'Halloran should benefit from those guys going out. The good news about the Giants is that they do have the list depth to be able to internally account for these problems. And I just think, we mentioned that the Lions forward mix, Mitch. I think the Giants forward mix is one that a lot of teams will be petrified of.
Yeah.
Cadman, Hogan, Green, Daniels. You throw in a Jake Stringer who's coming off 42 goals.
Darcy Jones, the helmet man.
And Darcy Jones as well. They've just got a really dangerous and variable forward 6 that I think is just going to be difficult to stop kicking enough goals.
Yeah, really keen to see how they fit Stringer in, because on paper you don't really need him on that, but they were looking for that extra 5 or 10% from what they lost in the finals. I was doing the numbers last night. So they led the Lions by 44 points
No, don't.
in that semi.
It's too painful to listen to.
But they also led by 31 points at the start of the last quarter. So third quarter, 44 points. Last quarter, 31 points.
You should never lose a game from there.
Nah.
You shouldn't.
And that would have been burning all summer. So the midfield, I looked at the top 10 from the best and fairest last year. Tom Green was the only pure midfielder to finish top 10 in the BNF. And they lose him to start the season. So he's going to miss the first couple of weeks. And their first 3 are Collingwood, Melbourne and Hawthorn. They're 3 pretty tricky games.
They could be 0-3.
We expect Melbourne will jump. So who's the next guy in there? Finn Callahan's just signed 4 years. He's knocked back big offers from St Kilda to return to Bayside Melbourne. So who's the next? Like Canelio, can he jump again? Josh Kelly, they've proven they can do it. Are these guys going to put themselves back in the A-grade conversation? So I'm keen to see what the midfield do. The depth you spoke about.
Sorry, can I just stop you there for a second? I had the exact same notes written down.
Yeah, right.
For me, the Giants' season rests on the shoulders of Kelly and Canelio.
Yep.
If those guys can go back to being 90% of the footballers that they were and that we thought they were going to be, I think they're playing off in a grand final. But if they continue to meander through the twilight of their careers, I'm not sure they've got the midfield depth. I'm not sure Tom Green can have another year where he just carries that midfield again.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the teams that they're going to be coming up against to win the flag, these are star-studded midfields. You think about Neil and Dunkley and the Ashcrofts. You think about Cripps and Walsh. You think about Oliver and Petrarca. Like, these are 1, 2, 3 punches.
Yep.
The Giants don't have that at the moment.
Yep.
Callahan's a good player, but he's not that sort of player.
Mm-hmm.
And, 3 years ago, you and I would have been talking about Green, Kelly, Canelio is basically unstoppable. They're not that.
Yep.
Can they get back to it?
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going on about depth.
Yeah, they just got the guys who do the Swan Street test. James Leake, Phoenix
Hang on.
Gothard.
Is this the Swan Street test or is this the Chapel Street test? I'm confused.
Harry Rouston, even a Connor Stone who you mentioned, but was pursued by Essendon last year. He decides to stay.
Yep.
They're going to get opportunities because of the depth guys, like, well, not depth, they're better than depth, but Cumming, Peatling, Perriman
Yep.
that leave. I love their defence. Taylor, Buckley, Iden is as good as there is in terms of a 3. 2 key backs and a Iden as a third. Throw in Himmelberg there. Lekalia can't even get a game. They've got Whitfield and Ash as the distributors. I love what they're doing. So at both ends, but the midfield is, a bit of a query, I think, right now.
Top 4?
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, I've got top 4.
Just my prediction for the Giants as well in terms of a list look. I think the stringer call might mean a few others look around. So Callum Brown started last year on fire.
Callum Brown.
Kicked 4 or 5 against the Pies in opening round. And I thought,
plenty of teams could use Callum Brown.
Yeah. Jake Riccardi. These guys aren't going to get games if they go with Jake Stringer.
Yep.
So that is a bit of a watch as the year unfolds.
Okay, from the Giants to, I'm just going to go get another coffee because we're on to the Cats. And tradies can turn into Geelong radio with Mitch and Scotty if we're not careful. So, Scotty, I want you to hold the mic and I want you to add to this enough conversation that Mitch is about to start.
Did you like our chat during the preseason scratch match last week? Geelong Hawthorn, Scotty and I were just trading blows.
I actually just muted it.
Baz looked good.
So I'll just do the ins and outs and then you guys can go for it. They obviously lose Hawkins, Rowan. Why is Gary Rowan not playing AFL football this year?
Yeah, that is interesting. When Jack Martin, you could think was a bit like for like, that forward type.
I just can't believe that no one's found a spot for him. Anyway, I digress. Tui retired and Parfit, BT's man, is out and they bring in Jack Martin and Bailey Smith. Go on, Mitch.
No, the midfield was lacking. So they go and get Bailey Smith and address that. We're keen to see what Jai Clark is all about this year. He's a top 10 pick. He was part of that Jack Bowes trade last year. Who steps up? Is it a Mitch Nevitt? Is Max Holmes a halfback or a midfielder? So the midfield is still a bit of a watch. And you look at Geelong, their match winners are still their older players. If you take out Holmes and potentially Bailey Smith, which we need to see bounce back after his ACL, but Jezza, Dangerfield, Stewart are all 30 plus. They've found some guys.
Jezza he's gone with.
Yeah, Jez.
That's pretty.
Jerry?
It's pretty universal.
It's a bit like Vanders.
It's pretty universal, isn't it?
I go with Jeremy.
Do the Swan Street test. Would more people know who Jezza or Vanders is? They keep finding guys like Dempsey as a rookie, Lawson Humphreys, but who's next? I mentioned Mitch Nevitt, Shannon Neal for life after Tom Hawkins. Can these guys have years like, a Stengel or a Myers had in the grand final year? They just got to find that next wave of player to continue to knock on the door because as consistently as the issue with Geelong, the older players aren't getting any younger and they need to continue to find and replenish that top end.
Scotty?
Me?
Yeah. Any issues?
No issues with that. I mean, issues with Geelong, I think, is, can Shannon Neal back it up after a really good last year? Took his opportunity after Tom Hawkins unfortunately went out. And another one for me is just seeing, more growth from the likes of your Ollie Henrys, who at times can, be amazing. Sometimes he can be inaccurate. He can be dropping marks. So those kind of players are going to be really important, especially with the likes of the older boys.
Welcome to Geelong Enough Radio if you're just tuning in.
Just on Ollie Henry, it gets forgotten in that final last year. He kicked 4 goals and kept Geelong in it in that prelim against Brisbane.
I remember it was very good. We've got a just quickly here from Chris for 7-Eleven's Food on the Go lunchtime offers.
Yeah, good day, boys. Just on the back of the Matt Rao news, just wanted to know that if Chris Scott farted in the woods, would Mitch Cleary hear it? Thanks.
I'd just like to just remind everyone, we're getting a little bit slack on this. Voice messages must contain the words just quickly.
Yep.
Otherwise, they will not be played.
There might be some prizes up for grabs this year too. So
there will be some prizes for just quickly.
Yes.
But you must say just quickly.
I thought that might have, when I saw Chris on the run sheet, I thought it might have been Chris Scott checking in and see how tradies is going this year.
Do you think there would be any senior coaches who listen to tradies?
There'd be one or two.
That actually actively seek it out on Spotify? I'd love to know if there was one. I'd love to know. I'd
Send
love
us
to do a market. I'd love to do a market of who would be the most likely to listen to tradies and who would be least likely.
Give me your least likely.
Luke Beveridge. Luke Beveridge or Damien Hardwick would be at the end of the field.
You don't know. They might be coming into draft time and they want to just be able to bring a bit of something to the table to the list managers and maybe wear their sauce.
Anything else on Geelong?
I just look at the ruck, which is always, for Geelong fans, is always a contentious issue. Blitzarves turns 34 in March, so how much longer can they rely on him as the break glass in case of emergency guy? Toby Conway keeps breaking down. He got a disc issue in his back over summer after a coughing incident in his bed. That's how that one unfolded. So Sam de Koning went in there late in the year, but then they went back to Reece Stanley for the finals when they felt de Koning's knee wasn't going to be able to stand up. So if de Koning goes into the ruck, what does that mean for the back line? Can a Connor O'Sullivan stand up long term? He was actually the guy that Geelong took. So Geelong had the pick for Essendon a couple of years ago in the draft. Essendon traded up to move ahead of Geelong. They took Nate Caddy, and Geelong took Connor O'Sullivan. So
I think I just fell asleep for a second. Just 1 second.
This is what tradies is all about.
Okay, can I? I've got 3 questions to pose to you, and feel free to jump in on this, Scotty, about Geelong. First question: what's their starting midfield?
Holmes, Dangerfield, Smith.
Okay.
And Dangerfield's going to spend a bit more time forward this year, I reckon.
Okay. Second question: will Lawson Humphries be starting halfback flanker round 1? Okay. Third question: who does Jack Martin play instead of?
That's the thing. I don't think he's sort of in their best team because you've got Myers close and Stengel. He's not bumping any of those guys out, I wouldn't think.
That was the issue for why Gary Rowan.
Which I think is why it's such an interesting selection. But they get him for nothing, right?
It's because they really rate their half forwards, the Cats. So none of the smalls go because with lack of midfield depth, they really get those half forwards pushing up the ground to kind of cover that. So none of them are going. So unless a big goes.
Okay.
Just one
Geelong
prediction.
Enough radio almost done. Yep.
We spoke about Matt Rowell. He sat down with Chris Scott and Andrew Mackey in the off-season. If they don't get Rowell and the midfield is still a watch, keep an eye on James Warple, who is from the Geelong region. He's a free agent at the Hawks.
Might be pushed out anyway if the Hawks get Harley. Okay. Moving on to Port Adelaide, who, of course, just announced a handover plan, which don't usually work, but here we are. Cleary, Dixon, Houston and Evans, the notable men that go out. They bring in Lukosius and Richards. I don't know exactly what to make of Port Adelaide because their starting 22, if you have a look at it, is a bit confusing. And I'm wondering, with Lukosius coming in, what happens to Finlayson and what happens to Lord?
Well,
because their starting 6 forwards are really interesting. So you think Lukosius plays, right? Georgiades picks himself. Is that fair?
Yep.
And then Marshall, you would say, gets picked ahead of Finlayson and Lord.
But Marshall's out for the year with that Achilles.
Yeah.
Is it the Achilles that he's done?
Was it Achilles or was it a high-end calf? It wasn't Achilles. It was Achilles. So I was talking about, like best 22.
Yep.
But so Marshall goes out. So, okay, one of Finlayson or Lord comes in. And then, you've got Rioli. You think Richards probably plays.
Yep.
It's a very different look forward line to what we have previously seen. And then their back 6, we'll get to their midfield in a second. Their back 6 of Burton, Evans, Zirk, Thatcher, Aliir, and then the half-back flankers are probably Burn, Jones and Bergman.
Yep. And Jace Burgoyne had a really good final against the Hawks.
Yeah. But was he more of a winger or?
Yeah, winger, halfback.
Yeah, winger, halfback. And their starting midfield is as good as it gets, isn't it? Like Butters, Rosie, Horn, Francis, and then you chuck in a Willem Drew.
And an Ollie Wines.
Apparently doesn't get recognised on Chapel Street. And then, Wines is probably on the bench, like rotating in. So their midfield depth is rolled gold A-grade material.
Yep.
But I don't love either end of the ground.
Yeah, and they lose to start the season, they will. Radical is going to miss the start of the season with a knee injury, and Zirk Thatcher's got a back injury. So there is some talk that Finlayson, to answer your original question, might go back to help out there. But they are apart from Aaliyah, they are a little bit thin on key back stocks to start the season. The key forwards, I really like Lord's upside, Georgiades and Lukosius. This is a bit of air raid territory, but I'm hearing they might go a bit quicker this year and move the ball a bit quicker to make the most of those forward types. They get Powell Pepper back as well from the ACL.
They always went quick.
Hey?
Didn't Port always go quick?
Didn't they used to bomb it on Charlie's head?
I don't know. I feel like they always went quick.
Do they have somebody that can fill the Houston role? Because that was a massive loss for them in the finals.
Two-time All-Australian. I think they got enough there, though, with Logan Evans, Jace Burgoyne, Ryan Burton. My Mitch's man, Kane Farrell, who's a free agent this year, might get some interest.
Is it Farrell a winger?
Yeah, but he can go to half-back.
Okay.
That deadly left boot. And then Miles Bergman as well, who, now that the Saints have missed on Finn Callaghan, the Saints are on record as wanting Bayside Victorians. Miles Bergman is one of those. Do they throw the kitchen sink at Miles now?
The Bayside Victorian thing's so funny to me.
No, well,
Like, is Bayside Victoria suddenly like 3 hours away from central Melbourne? It's an 18-minute drive.
no, but they feel that might be a bonus for them.
On the Finn Callaghan one, like, I don't presume to know where he lives. I assume he's not living in Western Sydney, right? Most of the GWS boys live in Balmain or, somewhere leafy near the water. Do you think someone's reminded Finn that, why don't you come back to Bayside, Melbourne? It's like, I'm living in the best coastal part of the world, arguably. Why would I move back to Sandringham?
Family?
That's an hour and 12-minute flight.
Depends how long you sit on the tarmac.
True. Well, not when you're flying up the front like you.
Where are they finishing this year, please?
Bottom part of the 8?
Yeah.
I think they have enough quality. I'm fascinated about Lukosius. I've watched this guy tear up games. I've seen videos of him dominate SANFL games as a 17-year-old, as a forward, as a key forward. And then I've watched him drift across halfback, play on a wing. His career's in his own hands for me. He either wants it or he doesn't. So if he can, if he kicks 40 goals plus, but he's a very different type of player to Dixon. And to your point about, bombing it on his head, they're going to have to use him as a hit-up more than anything.
I've interviewed Connor Rosie twice in the last fortnight. And he's really fired up when anyone questions about, potential drop-off. This is a team, in his words, that's made 3 prelims in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And they feel like, and to hand it to them, the midfield is Butters, Horn-Francis with a proper pre-season, Rosie who's fit himself. Like, that is as good as it gets when it comes to 3 midfielders. Do
you think Horn-Francis announces himself this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to, I know everyone's talked a lot about him.
Yeah.
But I would like to see him put together a season. Not just this sort of flash in the pan that has 16 disposals and, I want to see him tear apart 9 games of football. I want to see him have a Crips year.
Yep. The question for me is, what impact does the succession plan have in terms of player retention? And because Ken's had a big factor in
massive
in wooing these guys over time.
Yep, good point.
So, the Zach Butters one's going to be spoken about all year. Very close with Ken. I understand he's got a good relationship with Josh Carr as well. So I don't think that's, on the rocks, but does this allow him to look elsewhere and, explore something?
Zach Butters, for those who haven't seen him up close, sneaky small.
Oh. Tough bugger.
What'd you guess with the in the tradies height game?
179.
Oh. Well, I think that's going to be weirdly accurate.
Well, I do watch football.
Oh, what? And I don't. Don't answer that.
It's just taller than me.
Hang on.
Is he?
Hang on.
You play taller, Scotty.
Zach
small.
Butters is 181.
Same height as me.
Are you 181?
Yeah.
I thought you were bigger than that.
I play taller.
So you're not 6 foot?
I'd like to say I'm 6 foot.
You're not
maybe a centimetre just under.
182 is officially 6 foot, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Port Adelaide done and dusted. Our last season preview is for the Swans, and we'll start with a Just Quickly from Tom, brought to you by 7-Eleven.
Hello, boys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Flanners here, member of the Clubby family. Now, Got something here for Sam, just on Isaac Heaney.
no.
Going to go through a few of his numbers from last year.
This will be good.
Round 1, 26 and a goal. Round 2, 29 and 2. Round 3, 32 and 1. Round 4, 27 and 2. Round 5, 26 and 2. Round 7, 28 and 1. Round 8, 21 and 3. Round 9, 26 and 1. Round 11, 24 and 3. Round 12, 23 and 1. Round 14, 26 and 2. Round 15, 29 and 2. Round 18, 24 and 2. Round 23, 32 and 1. Round 24, 22 and 3. Qualifying final, 30 and 3. Prelim final, 24 and 2. Now,
What happened to the grand final?
if that is not consistent,
What happened to the
I
grand
do
final?
not know what is. Isaac Heaney is the number one player in the competition, and I'm not sure what you're thinking with your ratings there. But anyway, we move on, and look forward to your discourse further on this topic on the show.
So, a couple of things there. Clearly, Flanners has an Instagram account. That's good because I've noticed it's been sent to me a number of times. One of the Sydney fan base things did a whole Instagram post where you could swipe through every one of his games. I'm gonna have to go through this again because apparently I didn't explain it well enough the first 17 times. The list was more about consistency, not just 1 year. In fact, I specifically said it has to be back-to-back years, at least two of them, back-to-back. I don't think Isaac has put that together throughout his career. He's been a good player for a long time now. He was a great player in 2024. There is a reasonable argument to say that he was the best player in the competition in 2024. If he has the same year in 2025, he will be a roll gold A-grader. But he is not at the moment because he's unable to put together back-to-back A-grade seasons.
I think 1 year and the weight of last year should speak for more. Like, you know, Tex had a really quiet year last year.
But Tex had already been an A-grader. Tex kicked 70 goals in 2023.
Yeah, but Heaney had already been an All-Australian.
Yeah. Being an All-Australian doesn't automatically give you A-grade status.
Okay.
I have not slept well in recent weeks. I have not lost a minute's sleep over Isaac Heaney. Okay, the Swans. Out goes Luke Parker and Sam Reid. They don't really bring anyone in. The biggest trade in the offseason for them was Longmire out, Cox in. You've got a lot of depth on this list. You've got the likes of McInerney, McLean, Campbell, even Fox vying for spots. Their front six to me is really interesting. McDonald, Jordan, Papley, Amati, Haywood. Maybe you throw in a Taylor Adams into that mix. Amati kicked 43 goals. Haywood kicked 41 goals. McDonald 37 goals. Papley 36. And he missed 6 games. T-Pap. So, like, I'm not sure many people were expecting that sort of output from Amati. I think we're all sitting there wondering if McDonald can turn that 37 into 57 one day, or if he's just going to linger a little bit. Sometimes the bigger guys take longer to come on, but he has had a little bit of time now.
He's going to miss the start of the year from more reports too.
Yeah, and it doesn't,
that ankle is still...
Really, that's amazing.
He had surgery in the off-season, and they will come to rue that selection for a long, long time. I reckon, and I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying it.
Keep saying it, Mitch.
They felt like they owed him because they left him out in 2022 against Geelong, and they made the mistake of picking him underdone last year in the grand final, and it backfired. He wasn't the reason they lost, but it backfired pretty badly.
Mitch, question without notice here. 9 players played every game for the Sydney Swans last year.
That'd be up there with across the comp as the most consistency.
I think Brisbane had 11.
Okay,
off the top of my head. Do you want to hazard a guess which players played every game for the Swans? I know this is unfair because I've just put it on you.
Well, Heaney, no, because he was suspended.
Heaney is not one of them.
Goulden
is one of them. One.
You hit me.
Blakey.
Yep, the lizard.
Florent. Grundy. Goulden. Haywood. James Jordan played every game.
Yep.
Lloyd. McDonald and McLean.
Yeah.
The thing about the Swans and that why I've had so much respect for John Longmire is that, and you even go through those names, like, you know, obviously Goulden's going to be a superstar, right? And Blakey's a really, really good player. And McDonald was a top 5 pick. But there's this working class nature about the Swans that I think goes underrated a little bit. Like, I think we think of the Swans as glitz and glam, but they are hard-working blue collar workers. And I think we sometimes don't give them the respect that they deserve. I'm always glass half full on the Swans. I know that they've had a shocking record in recent grand finals, but you keep knocking on the door. Eventually, it's gonna fall down. And I think this is a list clearly from the points that I've just gone through with the consistency and the depth. For me, that is just going to continue to be right up there. I wouldn't be worried if I was a Sydney Swans fan.
Yeah, the key forwards is a watch. So clearly they've acknowledged that it's not working. So they've moved Tom McCartan from fullback. He's going to play forward this year.
Yep.
Amadi is boom or bust, isn't he? Kicks 9 against the Crows some weeks.
And kicks 0 the next week.
Then you don't see him for a couple of weeks. Hayden McLean's had some groin troubles through the off-season as well. So that forward mix, going to be really curious to see how that unfolds. And when you take Tom McCartan out of the back half, it does throw up a lot of questions now as to what they do in the D50. So Dane Rampy is 35 in June. When is this guy going to stop being good? When are they going to have to stop relying on him?
He might be playing when he's 40.
He's a star. Lewis Melican is going to stand up.
Good player.
But in terms of the other key back depth, I think some questions will be posed this year when some good forward lines come up against the Swans, especially if Tom McCartan is still staying as a key forward. They lose Parker. You think Taylor Adams is a bit like for like and can come in and play that role. Goulden, Heaney, Warner, and you throw in Rowbottom, plus Cal Mills is a bit of a new recruit this year after his injury troubles last year. I think that's as good as you get. Throw in Grundy as well. So that centre bounce mix is great. The half-back distributors are still elite with Lloyd and the Lizard Blakey. And now it just comes down to the coach. You know, do they get a Chris Scott bounce from 2011 when, you know, Bomber Thompson took them close in 2010? They miss. Scott comes in with an established list and takes them to a flag in his first year? Or does the succession plan look like Nathan Buckley in his first few years, going backwards a little bit before they get good again? I'm really curious about the Swans this year, and I could easily see them missing the top 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, you and I are very different on the Swans.
I think they play finals, but I can see them missing the 4.
I'm more confident about Sydney making the top 4 than I am Brisbane.
Is that purely the Danaher factor?
Yep. Yep. But you're right. I mean, we both raised the same point about Amadi and McDonald.
Yeah.
Don't absolutely fill us with confidence.
Yeah.
Having said that, they kicked 80 goals between them last year.
Yeah.
Not bad.
The Chad.
So can I just ask this question? And maybe I'm an idiot, right? That's going to get clipped up with an idiot. That'll turn into a meme. I'm Chad Warner.
Hello.
Hi. I am one of the best midfielders in the competition, playing in a side that consistently is vying for a premiership and is top 4.
Bit of modesty, Chad.
Right? Why on earth would I want to go to the West Coast Eagles? Am I an idiot?
Family, as I keep saying.
Oh, please.
And
like,
back to season 1 of tradies.
He's not moving to Bulgaria.
The partners. His partner's a WA girl.
Well, what's his partner's name?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Well, the potential Mrs. Warner, this is about winning flags.
He might win one this year.
It's about winning more flags. I can't fathom for the life of me, and I'm not a professional athlete, clearly, but everyone harps on about the fact that the average AFL career is a little over 4 seasons. That's not very much. Everyone also harps on about the fact that it's hard to win flags. You know, I've sat here and talked before about Matthew Richardson kicked 800 goals, one of the all-time greats. He played in, 2 finals?
Yep.
Never got close to winning a flag, and one of the all-time greats, but he thinks about that all the time. You think about all the greats of the game that never played in a flag. I have no idea why, and it's the other side of the country. It's a 3-hour flight. Come on.
4.5 when you're going with a headwind.
Okay, we're talking about wins now. We're talking about wins. Wow. He's going to get really well remunerated. I would be signing on the dotted line for Sydney to stay there for as long as humanly possible if I was Chad Warner. I wouldn't be going within cooee of the West Coast Eagles right now, because I think that they're going to get worse. And this whole thing that started creeping in, it was clearly being briefed about he has the opportunity to play with Harley Reid.
That's where I was going next.
Oh, my God. Seriously, spare me. What does that even mean?
It's like the NBA when players cross teams to play with each other.
Well, there's no good players at Sydney.
Errol Goulden goes all right.
Errol Goulden's fine.
Isaac Heaney's an A-grader.
Isaac Heaney's a very good footballer. I'm a little bit concerned about this whole thing. And if I was Sydney and if I genuinely thought that he was going at the end of this year, I would have shipped him in the trade period that quickly. You don't want to be here? That's fine.
But isn't it about winning flags? There's a better chance of winning the flag this year with him.
You don't want someone that's not there. You don't want someone that's just hanging on to the last year of his contract so he can go home. I don't want that at all.
He's a guy that can park that stuff, I reckon.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, it's great news for West Coast if he wants to come, right? If you're the West Coast Eagles and you've got...
Are we putting a line through Freo?
No. Now, if he goes to Freo, that I can understand. But if Chad Warner ends up at the West Coast Eagles this time next year, I'm going to be very grumpy.
Just a little sidebar on Chad. I saw he's picked up a little side hustle working for Inglis and the horse auction.
I hadn't noticed that. But I don't notice a lot of things being off social media. All right. Preview's done, Scotty. We all good?
Oh, real stuff next week.
For 7-Eleven's food on the go lunchtime offers. Are we ready to go for round 1 next week? Opening round?
Whiteboards are back.
Whiteboards are back. We've got a prop. Scotty, have you bought the prop yet?
The prop is currently sold out, but I am working on
Scotty,
the prop.
There's
you'll be surprised, very minimal amounts of them on the internet, but I am searching.
Scotty, you've had weeks to organise this. Weeks.
I can't.
I'll
build
back
it
Scotty
myself.
in.
Weeks.
I'll work hard. I'll see what I can do.
The phone is going to be on the desk
Okay.
next week.
If not, I'll make one.
Are you in Sydney for the season launch next week?
Yes. I'll see you there.
Are you working or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll be there. Maybe this time you'll actually accept my invite to go to something as opposed to the races on Saturday where you just...
How was that?
It's great. You didn't come, so you missed out. That does us for Tradies season previews. See you for round 0 next week.